Welcome to my weekly review. You're looking at a daily chart of the Nasdaq from 2017. I was asked by some folks about historical charts, and so there's a couple that I'm going to reference before I start my weekly review. This is 2017 on the Nasdaq, where we didn't have, more than a 4% correction for the entire year. So yes, since Liberation Day, we've been melting up, and we can do this for a long, long time. We have precedent here in 2017 where we didn't have more than a 4% correction. So it's just a nice, easy climb higher, and we can do this for a long, long time. As we saw in 2017, I think on this SPY it was like 3%. Yeah, just little blips, right? On this SPY, 245 to 239. So yeah, it was a whole year of just trading higher, melting up, real easy, smooth ride, little tiny corrections. So we do have precedent for what we're seeing right now, and I'll get to a current chart, but I do want to go to another chart that I referenced that I believe that we're kind of looking like a 1999 chart where, the Nasdaq was had a nice smooth trajectory for a long, long time. In the fall of 2018, we had this bear market, right? Kind of. Oops. I'll go to a weekly chart. You can see it better here. The fall of 2018, we had this bear market correction, then we rallied back up, kind of like we just had with our liberation or tariff tantrum at the beginning of the year, and then we rallied. So, and this, went on for years, where we just had this uptrend, right? But then when we got to the end, near the end, it just went straight up parabolic trajectory. And that's what I'm looking for now. Is the market starts doing this, and it's time to start being a little more concerned and start taking profits, locking in your gains. And I think we're going to get that. That's what I'm looking for right now. So 1999 precedent here, where it just went parabolic at the end. And then if I just fast forward, a few weeks, you can see, how it ends here for the Nasdaq, where it lost 80% of its value over the next 3 years. And yeah, we don't want to suffer that fate. Anyway, I'm going to go to today's chart. Yesterday was the 19th, and just take a look and see what's going on here. You can see we're in a nice uptrend. We had the tariff, tantrum here, 27% correction. And now we've rallied back up and got that V-shaped rally. And now so I think we have a long way to go. But when we start doing that, that's when I get concerned. So the market looks great. Jerome Powell gave us, what we wanted last week. He gave us a rate cut. Then he said, another gift, two more rate cuts in 2025. And the market has climbed that hurdle of uncertainty of rate cuts. So now there's, a lot of aggressive buying here last week, as we saw. I also wanted to point out a couple things about the Nasdaq. It's getting a little bit extended away from its 55.7% above its 50. We know when it gets above 6, it's, the wheels start, I'm not going to say coming off, but they start vibrating a little bit. And so it needs to get back under 6. And right now it's 5.7. And I think it's just, in great shape. It couldn't be better, making new highs. I'm not, sensationalizing over new highs. It's just in a strong uptrend. And it was up 2% last week, followed by, 3 weeks in a row, it's up like 1%, 2%, now another 2%. So it's in a real strong uptrend for the Nasdaq. I do want to point out the IWM, which, broke out here, had this 3 weeks tight pattern or 4 weeks tight pattern, broke out, and it was up 2% last week as well. So the small caps are more of a risk on type of environment. And so you could say, the risk off type of environment. So this is considered the risk index. And so if this thing's flying high, that tells you that investors are willing to take more risk at this time. All right, I want to get to just some stocks, and I'm not going to go through all the Mag 7. Google has just been on a heater since the positive judgment from Judge Mehta, and it's just been surfing its 5 ever since. If you just look at Google over its, time period since IPO. It's just been, I don't like to say set it and forget it, but that's one stock you can buy and just go golfing, fishing, swimming, gardening, whatever you do. You don't have to look at that. Google's going higher. And you have to look at NVIDIA, the king of the AI. If you're in the right stocks, you can do well during this uptrend. But if you're in the wrong stocks, you can also get hammered. And NVIDIA is one stock that, you got to be in. It's one of the leaders of the, AI boom, the AI and the robotics and anything that flies and software, the rotation into all these things AI after Powell cut rates last week, and we saw a rotation out of like the home builders. I'm going to get to that in a minute, and a rotation into some other things, which I'll get to in a minute. But NVIDIA definitely over time, just this thing's a monster. Okay, I'm going to get out of the Mag 7, except for I lie. I got to do Tesla. Had this on the ready list a few weeks ago, and it just broke out recently. We had it, I think 2 weeks ago when it broke above this little downtrend line, I believe in here. Yeah, but it was extended, going into last week and still managed to rally 7.5%. There was the breakout the prior week. So yeah, then it got extended. So I took it off last week, but still followed through. And that's what you want to see is follow through. And it's starting to look like Google, where it's just going to surf its five to higher prices. All right. That's it for the Mag 7. The three is enough, right? Google, Tesla, NVIDIA. Those are probably my three faves. Anyway, I can't go on much further without mentioning, the rotation, right? And obviously anything nuclear was going nuclear last week. The nuclear stocks went nuclear. OKLO was up 63% last week. Just alone on Friday, it was up 29%. And you could see the breakout here, just man, big move last week. Just a base of what, like 6 week base, a little cup shape there as it pulled back to its moving average. And then bam, whew, man, 63%. That would look good in the portfolio, wouldn't it? And it was like shooting fish in a barrel. All of these just and this is the one that I like that, gosh, was going to put on the ready list, but it just moved too fast on Friday. It was up 28% last week, but you can see it's still in a base, whereas Oklo is like, she gone girl. Yeah, yeah, I can't buy that way up there. In fact, they're probably going to do a secondary with a price like that, I would imagine, because they don't have any revenue. SMR, but yeah, this one still looks good to me. Broke above a downtrend line last week. So yeah, SMR looks, of these stocks, I mean, it's super extended from its moving average, but still it's within a base. It's not like crazy. Yeah, 15, 16% above its five. That's pretty extended. NNE, nano nuclear. This one's, right near a standard buy point of 43.75. Just another monster week for this one. You can see after the decision by Chair Powell. I mean, these things just took off. There it broke above this weekly downtrend line up, yeah, only 40% last week. Not bad. What else do we have here? Oh, another one of the big winners. This Centris and Oklo are the two big winners in this group this year. And there you can see that one is up 33% last week. Right near a 264.90 buy point, just exploded through it. That's what you want to see, power through the pivot on these nuclear stocks. And the one that I had, I'm sorry to say, GEV, this has wind turbines, and that's out of favor with this administration. So it's just squatting at its 50, doing absolutely nothing. You can say, oh man, it's trading, tight in its base, near its moving averages. Don't you like that? Yeah, I like it. I also like it to move like its peers. And this one is lagging its peers. Yeah, it made a big move and it's consolidating gains, but when the others look, parabolic and this is doing this, this is definitely a laggard in the group. The one stock that I did have on my ready list last week was Talon. I liked it breaking out of this base right here, this 394 area, and anything above 400 is good. It closed at 423.56. Let's take a look at this one on the weekly. Yeah, this one looks fantastic as well. Just wants higher prices. So that's a Utility electric power. And since I'm in this group, I might as well show some of the other ones, right? That I had on my list last week was AMSC. It's electric power. You can see the 5842 is definitely an area, of interest. If you're a Darvis type of trader, you say, what's in the box? Well, you want stuff that's out of the box. And AMSC, American Superconductor, was out of the box last week. There you can see on the weekly. Pattern Rec picks up that cup. In the last 2 weeks, it's been on in fuego. Very nice. VRT is another one when I think of this group, but this one is still in the base, like GEV. It just does not want to move. Yeah, it was up 6.5% last week, but I still think this one is what I would call, ready, or actionable. So that one looks good. And since we talked about Jerome Powell, we got to go to Powell Industries, and this one's just a monster. If you look at this on different time frames, you could just see how much of a winner this one has been, right? Since we ended the bear market in October of 2022, this one has just been on a heater. Now it's at $300. Gosh, man, I should have bought this one. I remember, yeah, it was down like 20 bucks. Okay. So that one's been like a 15 bagger. Not bad if you can get it. And I still think this one is actionable right there around $300. All right, that's it for the nuclear and the power group. I'm going to switch because we saw the high valuation growth stocks also get some rotation after Jerome Powell lowered interest rates and said that there's going to be further reduction of the Fed funds rate. Thursday, it added 5%, and then on Friday, another 3% for the week. Palantir was up more than 6%. You can see this one's just, been consolidating in a base for 6 weeks, and I think this one's ready to move as well. Yeah, I think that one could be on a ready list and actionable, even though it, moved a lot off the 50. It squatted at the 50 for a while there. But now that it's got off the dime, I think it's actionable still, even at $182. Can't go much further if you're talking about high valuation growth stocks and CrowdStrike, which broke above its downtrend line and really rallied hard on that news from Chair Powell. They also, talked about, new products and raising, expectations. And last week it was up a cool 15%. You can see this one's still just consolidating in its cup shape base. I think the standard would be just the old high, 517.98, call it 518, 520. So CrowdStrike still has work to do, but a nice strong move. Oracle, this is in the TikTok. You had made the big move on earnings, pulled back to the 5. This is a player in the TikTok sweepstakes. Yeah, it was up 5%. After the move the prior week of 25%, tacked on another 5% or so. All right. Who else? Oh, AppLovin going into the S&P 500 on Monday morning. So this thing, ever since the announcement's been made, this thing has been on a roll. I think it's up like 140 points in the last 2 weeks. There you can see the prior week it was up 18% or $91, and last week is up another 70. So 91 and 70, what do the math, Marty, $160. So yeah, and big volume coming in as it enters the S&P index. So good news for the AppLovin longs. Rubric, I just got to throw Rubric in here because I mentioned CrowdStrike. This one was consolidating in a base, reported earnings, and it was a total sell the news because the earnings beat expectations. They raised guidance. They did all the right things, but sometimes stocks just pull back to their 200. That's what this one did. And since the Powell decision, this thing had a nice day on Thursday, up 6%, another 3% on Friday. So Rubric is trying to get out of jail here above the 200. Roblox is the one that I wanted to mention. This is a top stock. Consolidating in a base. This one I believe is actionable as well. Heck, above Friday's high, I'll take it 137. Roblox, take a look at a larger time frame or a longer time frame. Consolidated in a base, broke out, made that high, and now it's just formed another base. So I like this one a lot. I wouldn't wait to that 150 at all. Yeah, I would get in prior to that. In fact, I did. DoorDash, another one that I like a lot. Consolidating in a base here. This one looks good. So we're seeing a lot of stocks set up, even though the Nasdaq's been really strong, these things have pulled back and formed nice bases back to their 50, like Palantir and Roblox are forming nice little bases here. So that makes me more bullish on the market when I see top, stocks, growth stocks, setting up in bases like this. Spotify, another one. I like me likey a lot. Nice, a cup with handle pattern here. You can see the stage there, six, six stage. This is not, like don't confuse them with the Weinstein, four phases. This is IBD terminology. And this is a cup with handle pattern. Now it's getting back up to the, the high in the handle there. And what would be the standard buy point, call it 750. I wouldn't wait that long. Spotify, super strong stock. And with the change of policy from the Federal Reserve, I think these high valuation growth stocks are going to continue to outperform. And then PGY, this is a software financial name that I had on my ready list last week. And on the daily, it doesn't look like, it just looks like it's grinding higher, but this did have a base here, and now it's breaking away from its base. I would say this is still actionable. What is it, 41.48 was that high that it made the one day, and it closed at 42.30. So just grinding higher, as you can see on the daily and the weekly. So anyway, that's it for the nuclear, the power, and the high valuation growth. I'm going to move to my favorite group. I'm telling you, gold. You got to own gold. I've never seen a bull market with gold being the top group for the whole year. And this year, this is what we have. Is crypto. Crypto's been strong. The dollar is weak, and gold has just been the star. It's been glittering. All that glitters is gold. Newmont up 4% on Friday. You can see the group here is ranked in the top 10, but it's a top one performer. And here you go. Talk about the trajectory, right? It did this before, though. So you always got to look to the left. The stock has done this before. And so now it's doing it again, right? That trajectory of just straight up. I wouldn't be afraid of these. After a big basing period, this one has taken off once again. And yeah, I just wouldn't be afraid of these gold stocks. They can make you money. BRK, mine had changed its ticker symbol just a B. Had a big move on Friday of nearly 10%. I don't know if that's news related or what, but once again, this thing's gone parabolic here, up 13, almost 14% last week. FNV, this is Franco Nevada, broke out of the base. These things have been up like 6 weeks in a row, and this is what gold's been doing. I'm not going to get into all the machinations of why gold should be higher. Sometimes, you don't need to know why. You just, the thing's going higher. So you got to own it. At least that's the way I think. We'll find out later why. How about that? DRD is another one of these Australian, or excuse me, South African gold companies that just broke out and it's just ripping hard, just, surfing the five like Kelly Slater here. There's your weekly chart with the breakout. Move higher. It's only up 14% last week. I think that might be nice in your portfolio. I don't know. The one that I own is AGI. This one's kind of a dog of the group. It was down last week. Anyway, it's not all about me. I'm just reviewing, right? I'm just reviewing, the week. And so gold was strong last week. This is AU, Anglo Gold Ashanti, just, up another 2%. These things are strong. SSRM is a top performer in this top group. It was only up 2% last week. What a dog. But you can see what, breakout, and it's just been surfing the five. This is, buy the dip, buy the bounce after the dip mentality on that one. All right. Enough of gold. You guys are tired of gold. Talk about gold all the time. The quantum stocks, IONQ broke out the prior week and followed through last week. There you can see the breakout on the weekly. There you go. Pull back, a little shakeout, pull back. It was up 33% 2 weeks ago. Last week, just a cool 27% move. Now it's $70. While it was just wallowing around, you could have had it for 30, 40 bucks, but nope, you got to wait till it's 70 to pull the trigger on. Yeah, I don't own this one, and I don't own Rigetti either. It's just you gotta have faith in the business, because they don't have any, you look at their sales, they don't have any sales or earnings or anything. But, you know, like Darvis did. Once it popped above 1816, what's in the box? Not Rigetti. This one's trading higher, blew past 1816 last week, made a big move of 49% last week. So that looks good in the portfolio too. You can see after the decision from Powell, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday just had a nice strong move for that one. And also the robotics plays. I said robotics and drones, anything that flies. Robots are taking over the world. Tesla's Optimus. This is XMTR, and there's nothing to do here. I mean, if you bought the breakout, it's just riding its moving averages to higher prices. Yeah, I mean, if you own this one, which I don't, you can see it's just had a little 3 weeks tight area, which is an add-on buy point. If you had it before the breakout, you could add on here. If you didn't have it before the breakout, that would be your initiation. And it was still up, nearly 6% last week. XMTR, EOSE, this is a battery, uh, low cost battery storage. Just, strong move. I know it's below $10 and I'm not supposed to buy stocks below $10, but the heck with that. We're just trying to make money in stocks, not trying to be judgmental or anything. That's all we're trying to do. We're not economists. We don't, we just try to make money in stocks. And once this one popped out of the box, what's in the box? Not EOS Energy, that's for sure. And then, do I have one more in this group? I do. SERV. They had a contract with NVIDIA a while back, and that's what spiked the stock right here. And then it consolidated in a base. And last week, it's not in the box anymore, right? 15% move. I guess you could still say, 1427, it's close enough. Problem is, it's really extended from its five now. Yeah, nearly 10% above its five. So, if it pulls back to 1427 next week, yeah, that'd be go time. But yeah, it's extended right now as of today, which is Saturday, and it's not trading. So, anyway, that's it for that group. What other group am I going to talk about? Oh, yeah, the construction group, another group that I like. This is kind of the build out of the data centers, part of the whole AI thing. And this is Road Construction Partners. Road's a ticker. You can see the base and then a base, and then now it's moving higher. And that one's moved on. So, yeah, a little extended here to be purchasing. But one that I did have on the ready list that was not extended was MTZ. You can see that 194 standard buy point. I think I had a little lower buy point for it, maybe. I don't know. I forget. But that one broke out of its box last week. So what's in the box? Not MTZ, Maztec. I was driving around the neighborhood, saw one of these Maztec trucks, and a fellow working there is a nice fellow. And I said, that's got to be a sign. And so I put it on the ready list last week. And it's really, I had a 6% move last week, 6% move the prior week. So this is out of the box and a little extended. So that's coming off my ready list, even though it's probably still actionable right there around $200. And then my favorite of the group is Sterling Infrastructure, and this one's out of the box. Once again, made that high of 321, pulled back to its 50. That's all it did. Just pulled back, formed a little consolidation pattern. And then Thursday, after the Powell decision, it moved. Then Friday, the options expiration Friday, we had massive volume. So yeah, you know, I don't care about the volume on the index, but on an individual stock, it could say, tell us that the institutions are buying this over the $300 level. Now it's at 360. Man, this thing has been a monster. If you just look at it, yeah, since the, what bear market in 2022, man, this thing has been just a beast. One of the top performing stocks since the 2022 bear market, even more than NVIDIA, believe it or not. Anyway, Sterling Infrastructure, that one will help your portfolio a lot. All right. I've got to get into some stocks here that I own and I like, and I think are going higher. I'm not saying buy it right here, but this thing's got this flag pattern, which we've seen a lot of, man, these flags, where it runs up off the lows, the liberation low, right? Ran up and just formed this little, flag pattern here. Yeah, salute the flag, right? Yippee-ki-yay. And now it's, just ripping higher down 1 week. Give you a little bit of a chance to get in. Let's see what that looks like on the daily. Yeah, not much, man. Just a little whoop. That's it. So this is your additional flag, right? You had your original and then the additional, and now it's doing it again before last week where it rallied up 6%. I think this one's going higher. It's just getting a little extended away from its moving averages. And I just say it needs a rest. I'm not going to say a pullback, maybe just a rest. That's all it does is rest a day or two. You can see last week, just pull back to its five here. And what did it do? It bounced. Oh, somebody asked me a good question. What constitutes a bounce? Well, I watch them in the morning. This is Friday morning. See, it pulled back on this day, the Thursday, to the five. And if I had the 5 minute chart doesn't show you, but the five EMA is looking like this, right? So it pulled back to the five and then it bounced. So what constitutes a bounce? Well, it did this. It ran up in the first half hour, so up to what, 38.43, and then pulled back. So you go, okay, that's a fake breakout. But once it gets above 38.43, like it did on this bar here, 38.43 at 12:10 a.m., 9:10 my time, and then it just started ripping higher. So that would be my go time above that 38.43. It closed around that level, 30. It climbed up higher, 39.87. I think it's going higher, but it's definitely respecting the five here. So you could just use the five as your guide. When it pulls back to the five, you buy. When it rips up, you sell, and just trade around a core position. So I like IREN. Another one in the group that I like is WULF, which, these are flagging, right? Ran up on the Google News, made this little flag pattern. I'll show it on the weekly as well. I know this is a weekly review. Yeah, just a little flag pattern, then whoop, we want to go higher. So let's see what this looks like on the, yeah, there you go. There's that little flag, right? There's your pole, and there's your little flag. You got a drunk pole here, sideways, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But yeah, the last 2 weeks it's rallied up, and I think that one's going higher. Same with CIFR. These three I really like. You can obviously see this one here clearly on the daily, but I'll go to the weekly. So it forms this flag pattern, just ramps higher. I did a video a while back of all the earnings gaps and all these flags that occurred, and they're just working like a gift. And here you go. There's the one that I just showed you there. Nice little flag and then higher. Also, glowworm is one that had this, flag pattern, just 3 weeks tight, just trading higher, LASR. Another one is just flagged out and just ripping higher. And I'm getting off my subject here. I'll make another different video for the flags. How about that? Another one that I like, I had some people dogging this one, saying this is not a good stock, but I own it. I like it. I don't know. Went up to 151, got rejected like Matombo, and then last week made another stab at it. So 2 weeks ago, it was up 38%, and then last week, it was only up 9%. That's almost like a short stroke pattern like we saw with CLS, where it ran up 25%, then gave back like nothing, like a 0.5%, and then last week it rallied up 5%. Once again, I digress and get off my subject on short stroke patterns. They're just running through my mind. I don't know how my mind works. But I got to go back to NBIS. That was the stock I was talking about. You can see here how it ran up to 100 on this day. September 10th, 101.51 got rejected like Matombo, but all it did come back to the five, gather a little steam. You know how when a jumper jumps, a high jumper, a basketball player, they kind of lower their center of gravity and then spring forward. And I think that's what this one's going to do and spring through 100. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And since I'm on the subject of these names, CoreWeave made that bottom, very distinct bottom here at 85, retested, tested and retested, then rallied through its moving averages above its 50. I thought it was really going to ramp on Friday, went up to 129 and pulled back $5. So I'm still watching this one and believe CoreWeave is actionable as well. All right, I got to go to the drug stocks. Can't have a weekly review without drugs stocks, that is. This is Halo, and it just broke out of a base and just, I don't know how many weeks in a row it was been up a lot. And last week had heavy volume, added on another percent. Just these drug stocks are just, nobody talks about them, but they're really strong, KAI. And I know, I get it. You can also have a bomb and blow up 80% in the morning on a failed trial, but a lot of the drug stocks are doing well, especially since, we're expecting rate cuts. This is one area that will perform well with a lower interest rate environment. This is INSM, just flagging here. I just talked about the flags. Big run, now flagging. Let's see what this looks like on the weekly. Yeah, there you go. Is this 3 weeks tight area? Yeah, that's an add-on buy point right there. So that will be on my radar list as well. That's a stock that I really like that I sold too early at 120. Now maybe I can get back in. Who else do I have in this? Oh, NTLA. Someone mentioned this to me on Twitter, and he had it, and it was up 36% last week. 30, yeah, 37%. That's a nice breakout. That will help the old portfolio. So yeah, I can't be afraid of biotech stocks. 1461 was the buy point. Now 1559 close. And oh, Hims and Hers. I'm going to throw this one in. Very controversial name, but just consolidating in a base here. And like I said, there's a lot of stocks that are, setting up in bases. So that makes me more bullish on the market there. Hims and Hers. All right. That's it for me. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. That's my weekly review for this week, except in honor of the great Steve Jobs, not the sorry Tim Cook. Uh, I have one more thing, and that is the home builders were just looking so beautiful, these beautiful looking charts. And then we got the Fed decision. It was a sell the news event, right? So that happened. That's very common. The housing market is kind of rough right now, but you just follow the charts, you follow the money. This thing looked good, and then as soon as Powell, lowered rates, this thing sold off to the tune of nearly 6% last week. Let's see what this looks like on the daily. Yeah, that's a nice little handle. Now, I'm not saying the rotation out of home builders is going to last forever. These stocks look good, but this could pull back to its 50 and have more of a elongated type of handle. PHM looks the exact same. You got a little bit of a sell-off after the PAL news here. This one was only down 4% last week. Good looking charts. I don't think they're ready quite yet. KBH reports this week. Lennar reported last week, and just, yeah, you can see these things. Just a sell the news event. That's very common. Even though the chart looks good, we're going to get in. These guys reported down 7% last week. Taylor Morrison is another one that I like. Nice looking chart, but sold off last week. It's got this cup, and then they're going to have to make these elongated handles, but I think eventually these things are going to take off and go higher. And my last one is open. It's home related, open door. I just want to point out this is like IREN, where it's just respecting the five and just flagging like crazy ever since the turnaround. If I go to the monthly here, you can see this is one of these IPOs from 2020 sold off. This looks like capitulation selling here in June, the month of June, where I think it traded down to like 50 cents. Yeah, and so now it's what, $10. So it's been a 20 bagger since June. That's the monthly chart. September is supposed to be seasonally weak. This one's up 115% this month. Up only 5% last week, but you can see these flags on the weekly here, and I'll show them on the daily where it ramped up like 100, I don't know, 88% in a week, and then flagged down to its moving average there. There's your flag. Then it rips up and then flags and then rips up, and now it's flagging again. You can see these on the daily. Yeah, there's the big move off the lows. And all it did was just pull back to its moving average, ran up, pull back to the moving average, ran up, pull back to the moving average. You don't have to hold this thing very long to be profitable. This thing is really ripping just a ton of flags. It's doing the same thing. It's minding the five. So if you buy at the five and then sell when it rips, that's the way to play this one. It pulled back the last couple of sessions, but you could see it just pull back to the five, closed a tick above it. I'm putting that one on my ready list for next week because I don't want folks to miss this one. I believe it's going much higher. They hired a new CEO, which is the in Can Slim. Guy is fantastic. Dude is a gem. Yeah, it's 1% above the five. So, I mean, it's go time for this one, I believe. They got some new board members. They're insider buying here. There's a lot to like about Open Door. I know the one thing I like is there's a lot of people who hate this stock, a lot of short sellers. Yeah, a lot of short sellers here. And I think the shorts are going to get burned. some more. They've already been fried to the tune of a 20 bagger. But anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching my weekly review at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.